Welcome to Health Hacktivators with lifestyle medicine doctor, GP and longevity expert Dr. Alka Patel. This show will help you to discover a hidden health hacking code that unlocks your phenomenal potential for an outstanding health span, lifespan and wealth span. The show features candid conversations with celebrities, influencers and industry icons, real-life stories and cutting-edge health activating advice that other doctors might not tell you. Discover why now is the time to join the strategic self-care revolution and experience the profound effects this will have on your personal and professional success. Now, here is your host, Dr. Alka Patel.
Hi, hey, and hello, Health Activators. On today's show, it is Johnny Seifert, entertainment journalist and head of showbiz at a national radio station and TV channel. Johnny is also the host of the very successful podcast, Secure the Insecure, where his conversations with celebrities are regularly featured in the tabloid press. Now, in his show, Johnny gives his guests space to share their vulnerabilities. The question is, will he share his own vulnerabilities with me today? We're talking about purpose and priority. We're talking about validation, boundaries and expectations, love and self-love. But just one thing, you might just want to listen to the rest of this episode in half speed. Oh boy, can Johnny talk fast? Before we get into today's show, please do support today's show partner, Youth and Earth. Youth and Earth have a range of products that I love to use myself to supercharge my metabolism, to support my health, and to slow down cellular aging. Just be sure you click the link in the show notes for exclusive offers, which Youth and Earth are so generously giving for listeners of this show. Welcome, Johnny. Fabulous to see you.
Hello, Dr. Patel. Thank you so much for having me. I really, really appreciate this.
Oh, you are so welcome, because I really was looking forward and am looking forward to speaking one podcast to another, because I want to talk about your podcast, actually. Let's just kick off there. So it's Secure the Insecure, isn't it? And it's you talking to celebrities about their vulnerabilities. So I just want to start by asking you why. Why did you decide to make this the focal point of your show?
So I want to take you back to March 2019. And this is actually pre-COVID, a year before COVID happened. A lot of people started podcasts as COVID projects. I went a year before. I lost my purpose. I lost my sense of identity. I lost who I was in society. I didn't know where I belonged. And I couldn't get a mortgage. And as a freelancer, that's really hard, because you're watching all your friends in the business corporate world going and buying their first flats, then going to buy their houses, and they've got kids and they're getting married, and I'm single and I'm freelance. And I'm like, well, what have I got for me? At the same time, I work in showbiz and I was an entertainment journalist, and I wasn't getting the interviews anymore because they're being given to better known, more household name interviewers. So I thought, okay, I've lost doing the interviews and I've lost my purpose of who I am as a person. So I've got no career, no life. What the hell's going on? And I spoke to a psychologist, the amazing Emma Kenny. And she said, well, why don't you start a podcast? All these celebrities, why don't you do it? You've got access to a studio. And I thought, well, you're right. And so I can't do chats, which are very on the line of, oh, how are you? What are you up to? Let's gossip. I love a good gossip, but I have to have a deep conversation. I have to talk insecurities and vulnerabilities, because then I can understand why the person is the way they are. Similar to me, why am I unique? What's my journey been? You need to understand that, to understand who you're talking to. And I thought, this is the podcast. This is what I'd want to listen to. This is what I love about celebrities. And so I started it. And at the beginning, I got a couple of people I knew from home who had had mental health problems. And it was very much like, this is the episode about anxiety. Now we're going to do eating disorders. Now we're going to do this, this and this. And then over time, over the past 3 years, it's just grown and grown and grown. I'm coming up to the 200th episode in a couple of weeks' time. And it's just gone massive. And so I'm getting all the Love Island stars, all the Made in Chelsea's, the Towers, the Married at First Sight, all wanting to be on. I'm getting messages saying, can I come on? Because I just want to have that conversation that I'm not getting anywhere else. And this is the problem. You go on reality TV, you come off, you start doing interviews, you talk to the press. All they want to know is the gossip. All they want to know is the clickbait. Whereas I go, look, stop. Let's go back to your school days. I always start with school. What were you like in school? And then you can judge a celebrity about what they talk about. So, for example, they might say school's really good, and you're like, okay, they're probably not on that level to have a mental health talk, will talk just about their career. Others will say, I've been bullied or I've gone through this experience. Then you can start delving deeper, and then you have the most magical conversation that you've not heard anywhere else. And it's that one-on-one conversation that you can go walking, listening to this podcast, and just forget about the world, just be in the zone. And that's what I really want from the podcast, is that someone who's in the zone, who can listen to the story, learn from the story, and go, I now know why they are the way they are. And that's what my goal is for Securely Insecure.
And I think that's such a great mission and purpose. And you sort of started off saying that I didn't have a purpose. Do you feel that now you have? Have you got any more concrete sense about that? Because there's so many questions I want to ask you about from what you've just said, but let's just start with that and purpose. How have you defined that for yourself through your podcasting, through your connections with celebrities, through having very open conversations, giving people space? Because that is the one thing that's missing, isn't it? I think if people had more space to share, then I think that would make such a huge difference to what we define as vulnerabilities and what we define as strengths and what we define as weaknesses. So let me go full circle back to that question then, back to purpose.
I think it's really hard, and especially since COVID, because suddenly all these celebrities have now got podcasts, and we all know that they're all getting 25,000 to 100,000 downloads a week, and therefore you're comparing yourself to those. Then you've got them all filming again. They've got a proper film setup of 8 cameras in a studio with managers, with videographers who are making these amazing clips for TikTok. You know, you think about Nearly Wed's podcast, GK Barry's podcast, great podcast. They sit perfectly on TikTok as much as they do as a podcast. Then you've got Stephen Bartlett giving us 2-hour podcasts where that really is in depth. You get 100 different clips coming out of that. You're getting incredible press for it. And you're like, I want that. You know, Stephen gives them a whole experience. He's got 8 people working with him. You know, he picks the celebrities up by car. I know a lot of podcasts, I don't know which ones in particular pay for guests. And so you're like, okay, this is how they get the amazing guests. This is how they get the amazing conversations. What do I get? And so you look at your purpose and you go, what is my purpose? My podcast isn't like theirs. You know, it's amazing the stars I get. I'm so humbled that they trust me to tell me their stories. That's one of my purposes, the trust, that they trust me. And they go, I'm going to give up my Saturday to come and speak to you. And I know I'm not being paid. I have to make my own way there. But I want to talk to you. I want to give you that exclusive because I know you'll look after. And I always say to them, it's like a postcard. If someone wants to know the real story of you in 2 years' time, you say, look, listen to Securely Insecure. You'll actually understand my journey, not just the clicks, not just a bit of showbiz gossip. My purpose, that's my little baby. That's what I can go, this is what I'm really proud of. This is mine. And I think that's really hard when you work for an organisation and whatever industry it is, you're always working for a boss. You're always working for someone. You're not doing anything for yourself. And so when I see my name in the press and I see they spoke to Johnny Seifert, I'm like, wow, that's me. And so when I make my little collages of like, you know, I had 8 articles, 10 articles this week, and I put that on Instagram, I go, that's for me. And it's funny because no one really likes it on my Instagram. None of my friends really ever get involved in who I'm speaking to unless it's someone like they absolutely love. And so I go, oh no, I'm not getting the likes. But for me, that collage shows it, and I see it as like a big portfolio for one day. Someone's going to say to me, Johnny, I want to hire you. I've seen the amount of amazing press you get. And so look, I'll be totally honest. I have Google alerts in my name and in the podcast Securely Insecure's name. And I check Google every hour to see if my podcast has been picked up. And I get a buzz, and I get the adrenaline, and I get the adrenaline of the celebrity saying that they love the interview. And then when they share it and they go to town sharing it and putting it on their profile because they're so proud of it, or on their story, and their TikTok, and I go, that's my purpose. I've changed their life, and I've given them the platform, which so many other people could have done. And so many people have given them, but I'm the one who has made that difference to them. Amazing.
Amazing. And I love that you've had that discovery piece to kind of be able to vocalize that for yourself. But there's another question in that, what you've just said as well, is for yourself, what's your sort of driver? We haven't quite got there because I'm hearing a bit of kind of that need for significance, for recognition, for validation. Is that right?
It's all about validation. It's all about feeling validated that I can do the job, that I am a good journalist, that I can ask the right questions, that I do know the right people. It's completely validation. It's also this is my almost popular time. You know, at school I wasn't that popular. I was right straight down in the middle. I was friends with everyone. But now you go, okay, well, what's my popularity based on? Well, it's based on not in the school hierarchy. It's based on your following on social media. So you look at people around you, go, well, look, they've got 200,000 followers, they've got 1 million followers, you've got 5,000 followers. And so you get those big spikes when the celebrity shares it, you get a load of new followers. That's validation. The validation that therefore comes in the aspect of the celebrities that have said yes to it, the validation of how many listens it gets, how much press it gets, how much it's spoken about, how your followers change. I do think a lot of it does come back to feeling validated and my own insecurity that I'm not validated in society.
Yeah. Because there's a danger there, isn't there? It's chasing this, what I call vanity data. The likes, the followers, it's data, it's information. Numbers give you a surge of information and you feel good in that moment. So it's kind of, why are we becoming a society that's seeking this external validation? Because if you need that external like, the follow, the comment, then what's happening to you internally? What happens when that's not there one day? Where's your self-validation come from?
We know all about that dopamine hit that we get with likes. It's been spoken about for the past couple of years. We all know that. We all know that we're always chasing the followers. And it's funny because, Instagram said, we're not going to share how many likes are. You can hide your like count.
Yeah.
Yes, you can hide your like count for everyone else. But you still know who's liking it for you. And it's funny because you go, well, I've had one like. And so you can then hide your like count. It will say, this person liked it and others. You're still showcasing to the world something very different to what's going on internally. It's all a numbers game. Facebook, it didn't matter how many friends you had. You added everyone. Now everything is based on followers because followers equals currency. If you have 60,000 followers, 100,000 followers, you get that big brand deal. You look at a Love Island stuff, for example, and Love Island this year have banned their stars from posting on Instagram whilst they're in the villa. So they're all coming up to like 10,000, 20,000 followers and then having to do the real hard work for it. They're not feeling validated. They're going, well, where's my purpose? Because it's a numbers game, because otherwise they're not going to be able to work with brands. You look at the TV industry and the radio industry now, how many of those presenters are now coming from TikTok into the mainstream media? It's not the other way around. The mainstream media aren't becoming TikTok stars. It's only one-way traffic. So the new Blue Peter presenter, for example, he was a big TikTok star. Will, who's on Love Island, was a big TikTok star. GK Barry, TikTok star. So everything's TikTok. And it's funny because now I used to go to all these junkets and red carpets, and I don't get invited to nearly as many red carpets for the launch of TV shows as I used to, because the channels would rather take a TikTok star to do the interview because they know they can hit 1 million people with that video. Whereas what I'm doing, my audience isn't as big as that. And so everything becomes a numbers game. Everything becomes a currency. And so going back to what you said about validation before, no one really feels validated, especially in the media industry, which we've always known to be insecure. But with the rise of social media, it's got even worse since.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And this is that sort of dichotomy between social connection, which you think you're getting through social media, and then social isolation, which is the reality. And you'll have heard your guests talking about this on your show, because that's where they're given the space to talk about how disconnected they feel, even though they might have all these followers and all these people in their social zone, i.e. online on a screen, but not really in their life. And I want to come back to you as well, in that, do you feel socially isolated? Do you feel lonely, even though you've got these connections through your podcast, through your work with people? Where does that sit with you in your real life, your off-screen life?
Yeah, my off-screen life is horrifically lonely. I think if you ask anyone who works in the media, they'd probably say the same. It's a very keeping up the Jones. Yes, you go to all the events. Yes, you go to all the Fiesta openings, and it's all showy and glitzy, and you go to all these showbiz events and they're all very glitter and sparkles and everyone's kissing and everyone's best friends with each other. But you still go home alone. I still live in a one-bed flat alone. I've been living alone for 4 years. I've just booked my first holiday to go away alone for 6 days as a trial. I made such a big thing on social media about going away alone. And then my mum said to me, oh, she could come now. My sister said, well, she'll come. And I said, no. I've told social media I'm going alone. And now I'm forcing myself to be lonely. I'm massively lonely as well. I'm still single. All my friends are engaged or married and they've got kids and they're living in houses. And then there's just me in my little one-bed flat. And day to day, I don't notice it. I go on my walks. I do 18,000 steps a day. I'll go to the gym. Not that you can tell by the way I look, but I generally do all those things. It's the diet. I watch my TV. I do my work. I'm respected in work. I've got friends in work. On my walks, I have a phone call each day with someone and I feel great. And I have a long bath with my book, and I'll do some self-reflection. It's great. But it's when I go to an event, like a wedding or a party, and I see everyone with their bumps, all the girls with their bumps because they're having a baby. And I see all my friends and their couples, and it's, oh, we're doing this, and we did that, and these couples did this, and these couples. And I'm like, well, I wasn't invited to any of that. I'm not part of this world. I can't relate to that. You're all having conversations about marriage and kids. What do I bring to the table? But it's funny because then the grass is always greener. Because then I spoke to my best friend yesterday, and I said, and he's got 2 kids, and he said, he has 2 minutes to shower. And I said, I have a 10-hour bath. I have 10 hours to watch TV. I can go away. I can sunbathe. I've got to play with the kids. The grass is always greener. I want to have all those people around me. He wants to just have a bit of time alone. Look, I'm not saying I want to have kids tomorrow. Far from it. I'd love to have a partner. Look at Valentine's Day, Christmas Day, your birthday. You go, well, who's spoiling me? Who's doing anything for me? And then who am I spoiling? Who am I treating? Where's that empathy? And I know I haven't got the financial empathy. I've never had to think about other people. I've only ever had to think about myself. That's hard. That's hard to admit. Yeah. I've got the emotional empathy, but a lot of people don't for single people. Mm-hmm. Everyone's been single at some point in their life. And I think when you get into a relationship, and especially when you get into a serious relationship, I'm 30 years old, so I'm talking about people like in their late 20s who have got into relationships as their first ones. They've completely forgotten what it's like to be single. Completely forgotten. And it is isolating. And I book my diary up 3 months in advance so that I know I've got a plan every single week. Otherwise, I've got weeks where I don't see a single human being. Well, that's not right. And yet they've got their partner to see if they've got no plans. I don't want to make some plans. I'm seeing my partner, I'm seeing this, I'm seeing that person. We're doing these couple of things. That's all well and good. And so it becomes very hard when you start comparing yourself to others. So learning this day-to-day, when you start comparing yourself to others, massively. And again, it comes back to social media because we all want to showcase on social media how busy we are, how popular we are, how we're around all these people. And I'm going, well, I've got nothing to show for it. So it is lonely, it is isolating, but it's in your head. You've made it all in your head.
It's interesting that you brought up the head, actually, because when you go to kind of brain chemistry and what's actually going on, when you're feeling socially isolated, disconnected, there's a part of your brain, it's called the dorsal anterior cingulate. I can't quite show you where it is. Dorsal means at the back and anterior means at the front. So it's, front and the back of the cortex of your brain. And it's the part of your brain that lights up when you're in physical pain. So when you've had physical pain, that bit lights up. And guess what? It also lights up when you've had social pain. So what's social pain? Social pain is feeling lonely, right? Feeling disconnected. So it's a painful stimulus. And from what you've described as well, it takes work and energy and effort to create social connections and, real deep, meaningful connections. It's not easy. And especially as you say, you kind of start to get set in your ways and find your own space. And then suddenly you've got to work to someone else's schedule or go out for dinner when they say or eat what someone else says and when you might not feel like it. And so social connectivity takes effort and energy. And if you don't respond to some of those signals that are coming right from your brain, we're all chasing the same thing, Johnny. We're all chasing that dopamine. We all want that gratification, but we don't want it delayed. We want it now.
Right? Yeah, I think that's it. And it's funny because I never grew up loving football. I wasn't one of the lads. I never watched the football. I never went to five-a-side on a Wednesday night. That was a way that everyone socialised. Even though they weren't talking, they were communicating with their feet. And so I had to work extra hard at creating friendships. And I created a lot of friendships and I've lost a lot over the years as everyone drifts and moves on. But you had to work hard. And, I get jealous if a friend becomes friends with a new friend because, well, what am I doing? Again, being single my whole life, watching people go in and out of relationships, like, well, I've been on Hinge for 10 years. Why am I not getting a date? And yet you've been in 2 relationships. That's not fair. And it's funny because you do get set back, and it's interesting what you say about the physical pain. I had a lunch a while ago, and there was a lot of people around, and I didn't sit with anyone I know. And I tried to make the conversation around with those around me, and it all came back to kids. And I was like, well, I can't add to this. I can ask you a couple of questions. I'm an interviewer. I don't really care the answer. I'm doing it to be polite and also have a conversation going. And I felt so isolated afterwards. And it took me 5 days to get out of that. And to get out of it, I took myself. I did an amazing night for myself. I took myself for a haircut. I then joined a gym and had a little workout. And then I took myself for dinner alone. And I just felt good again. And it's funny because that pain took so long to get out. And I meditate and I manifest. And, you can write out a list of the pros and cons and what's the worst thing that can happen in that situation. But unless you're in it, it's very hard. I've got 3 weddings this year and I don't know anyone going. And you've got all these couples going to be there. And you're going, well, do you know what investment I'm making to come to this? Not financially, but emotionally, because I'm not going to have a good time. And I know I'm not. And I'm doing it for you. And it's funny because it's kind of taken for granted of, well, obviously, that person, or, well, you're there for me. Yeah, but I'm not going to actually see you. We know at weddings you don't see anyone. And same at parties. There's a lot of emotional investment when it comes to parties as well. Yeah. And they're not comfortable. And I'm very good at doing what I call a Jewish goodbye, which basically means that you come in and you show your face. And you stay there for about 10 minutes, you go, right, I'm going now. And the Jewish goodbye basically is a 2-hour goodbye. Because it's you, and then you start having a deep conversation. And then the next person. And I'm very good at that. And that's a boundary I've set for myself. I'm never disappointed because I know I can walk in and I can walk out. And I know where the exit is. And again, people don't realise that, especially when you're in a couple and you've got your partner you can rely on, having that girlfriend or that boyfriend to have those little conversations with whilst you're waiting for something to happen. If you haven't got that, what are you supposed to do? Drink alone or just stand alone watching, or you sit on your phone deleting photos or text messages? It's isolating. It's lonely. It's not easy to join in when you've got that mental pain in your head.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But it's that being responsive to that, isn't it? It's thinking about what can I do, not what can I expect someone else to do? Who can I make eye contact with right now? Exactly as you're doing. You've got to get out of that difficult feeling and make that change. There's this really I keep going on about the science because I love talking about it, but there's another very interesting molecule which is called tachykinin. And what happens with this, it's almost like it's released when you're under stress. So when you're not spending time with people and you're around people like that party you described and you don't really necessarily trust them or connect with them. But what this molecule does is it gives you this feeling of fear and paranoia. So it really makes you feel like, why is no one talking to me? What's going on here? And it's almost this kind of signal that says, come on, you've got to start finding people that you can trust, that you can connect with. And if you can't do that, what happens is you do exactly what you're doing, which is I'm going to go off and do something I enjoy. I'll go for my walks and I'll go to the gym and I'll do that. And you try and fill this gap. So my question to you then is, what is getting in your way of filling the gap with a human being as opposed to filling the same gap with the walking and the bubble baths and the gym and all of that? What's getting in your way?
Oh, that's a question. The voice is going to change now. The vulnerability is now coming out. Where I find said person, because if you're not on you can do the apps. You can do the apps to the heart's content. You can't help that people aren't swiping for you. You can delete your profile and re-upload it 1,000 times and write completely different messages. But you can't help it the way you are. You've got to love yourself for who you are. You can't think, well, I'm not good enough because I'm not getting those likes. You can have a hobby. I don't really have a hobby. It's finding those people that you can connect with. It's finding the...
Just rewind a second. Do you love yourself?
Yes, I do love myself. I know I love myself because when it comes to Valentine's Day, and I treated myself and I take myself for dinners or a massage, or I'm self-manifesting, or I'm looking in the mirror even saying I love you to myself, or I'm proud of the work that I do. I'm proud to be in my own company. Like I said, I'm going on holiday alone. I'm a bit scared, but I know I can do it. And I think when you live alone, you have to love yourself because you have to treat yourself, whether it's through food or activities. You do, and you are proud of who you are. And I'm proud of the conversations that I have with my friends, having a deep chat with them and learning something new. I'm proud of that. I'm very proud and happy with who I am. I just wish there was someone who was also happy with who I am.
So what's the next step? I mean, are you going to come off the apps? What are you going to do?
It's hard. It's hard. So being a traditional Northwest London Jewish boy, I want to find a Jewish girlfriend. The only way really to do it is the apps. There's no social places to go to for that. I wish there was. If there was, that would make a massive difference. That aside, friendship-wise, I'm very lucky I work in an industry where everyone is not fake showbiz best friends, but everyone knows everyone. Everyone's acquaintances. And so I've always got two meetings in my diary a week. So a dinner with a friend or a PR or a celebrity. I've got 2 dinners a week to get out there. And it's just keeping communicating. Like I said, day to day, absolutely fine. It's when you notice it, when everything's around you. And I think the important thing, like you said about loving yourself, is day to day, yes, I love myself. I'm not comparing myself to anyone else. I'm doing my routine. I enjoy it. I meet people. I like you. Cool, let's go for dinner. Let's have a nice chat. It's when you're around other people is when you notice it. But that's hard because that's your environment.
Yeah, and we're hardwired for that. We're hardwired to be kind of comparing ourselves to others. It's what pushes us forward. It's what edges us out. It's what kept us safe when we were living in caves. We had to kind of be that person to kind of fit in and belong and be a part. So I think it's, when you start to deny yourself that as well, life gets much harder.
Correct. And obviously COVID was an amazing thing for in a social point of view. Obviously not amazing what it did medically, obviously. I want to just make it clear, I'm not saying COVID was a great thing physically, but from a mental perspective, you had to love yourself. We all went through change, whether it was being furloughed or it wasn't being able to see people. You had to adapt and learn to love yourself, to give yourself those little treats, whether it was a takeaway or whatever it was. And we've all come out the other side, this hybrid way of working from home was the thing. And now it is. And at times it can be great, even more so than working in an office environment. If you're around a toxic person or you're around by people who bring you down and that negative energy, you can create and you can control what energy is around you and you can control what your day is. So I think that, especially when you look at the last 3 years, I think we've all massively grown. And also, we're now all talking about mental health a lot more, whether it's through listening to Jay Shetty or Stephen Bartlett or just through ourselves. The conversations we're having are very different, especially men's mental health, the way we talk about that now. I mean, me and my boys, they know I'm going to always be very open with them and tell them how I feel straight away. And, sometimes I'm looking for them to give me a solution. And sometimes I'm asking for them just to listen. But it's amazing when you're around boys now and you're having those conversations that you never had before. And look, it's great to be silly. It's great to have a laugh. But it's also very good to have a really deep conversation as well.
Yeah. And it's lovely to hear that you've got that space to do that and you're giving other people the space to do that as well. And I think from what you've described as well, although it's, yes, I love myself, for most people, before they can love themselves or even think about that, you've got to get to know yourself. Most people don't know themselves. And I know you sort of said, oh my God, I was going to go on holiday on my own and, I didn't want to, but that ability to kind of be in your own company, that idea of solitude versus loneliness, they're two different things. You're on your own in both. But with loneliness, it's this gap between what you want and what you've got. With solitude, you want to be in your own company. You're curious about yourself. And I don't think you can love yourself until you've got to know yourself. And I'm often asked my clients questions around values. What's important to you? What matters to you? We started off this conversation with purpose. Why do you get out of bed in the morning? And I don't know when you ask these sorts of questions, but most people don't know because they've never given themselves the space to even think it. You're kind of on this hamster wheel, aren't you? Clicking on social media, getting up, going to work, all of this. Where is that space for solitude? Do you know what I did last year, Johnny? I took myself off my birthday. There was an expectation to have this big party. Where's the party? When's the party? I was like, nope, I'm going off on my own. And I spent 7 days in silence, not talking to anybody, not saying a single word. The only person I had for company was me, this person in here. And honestly, the revelations when you just spend time with yourself, I think most people are afraid because they don't want to sit with their own critical friend. That's so important. So I'm so glad to holiday on your own. I'm so glad.
You're right in the fact as well that, the loneliness is an extroverted emotion. It's something you can't control. The solitude you can control. You can control how you sit with your thoughts. You can control what that idea of what a day looks like for yourself. So when you want to give yourself that time, so when you take yourself away and go, I'm going to be in silence, you've organised that already. You've already decided in your head that's what you're going to do, and therefore you want to follow it through. I mean, I'm sure I've got ADHD. I'm 99.9% sure I've got ADHD. I haven't had it tested. I'm not going to pay a fortune for it. Because also, if you've not got it, doesn't mean anything. If you do have it, doesn't mean anything either. I'm not medically enough that I'm going to ever need medication for it. But I like organised lists. I like to be able to tick box. I like to know what I'm doing. I don't like change. And so when I've decided that I'm going away alone, yes, my mum and sister have said they want to come with, but I already know I have to do this because I've told myself I'm doing it. And I think when you're in solitude is that you can do that manifesting. You can write the letters to yourself. You can ask those important questions to yourself. You can just even go for a walk in silence by yourself. And it's those thoughts as well of how many of those thoughts are positive and how many are negative. And if it's negative, how do you change that? There's a great podcast called Sleep Cove by a guy called Christopher Britton. And it's a meditation podcast. And he's got 1 billion episodes in all different various themes. And I keep saying to him, look, you need to do a theme about this, a theme about that. And so when I am feeling down, I put one of those on that he's made. And I'll listen to that for 40 minutes. And I'll meditate and I'll think. And then I'm fine again. Because like I said, it's what's the worst that can happen? What is the worst of being single at the moment? Nothing. I'm not losing any money. I'm not losing anything. I'm not gaining anything, but I'm not losing anything. And I think you're right, you've got to be in your own mind. And I think a lot of people can do it, but they just don't give themselves the time to because of kids, because of external things. And the best of being single is that I can sit with a book and just mind map and just go, what's going through my head? And not necessarily what does it say about me, but what does it say about everyone else? If I'm not doing, if someone's not answered my message on WhatsApp, and I'm always on WhatsApp, and they haven't, what does it say about them? What's their journey? What is the reason why they haven't written an essay like I have? And it comes back to love languages, and it's something that you don't have to use love languages just for a partner. It can be for anyone. And so some people are the gifts, some people are the words of affirmation, some people are the time they spend. And we're all very different, and you've got to understand what they are to understand who you are as a person. And once you understand that, you don't get upset because you've set your boundaries. And it all comes down, I think it's funny because I think if we bring this conversation thus far, the 3 themes really are validation, boundaries, but actually the one above that is expectation. Because we've all been expecting these different factors, whether it's about ourselves, about other people, about life and different factors. We've got to manage those expectations. If you manage those expectations, you can manage the boundaries and you can manage that validation.
Yeah. And guess who sets those expectations? You do, right?
Correct.
And it's about judgment. Someone won't answer your text and you're immediately judging why, but you don't know why. One person not in front of you to ask those questions, but before you know it, you've found 3 different reasons why they didn't answer your text. And you don't know.
That always goes. If anything, I get so paranoid at so many different examples day to day where I think I've upset someone, offended someone, and then you sit with your thoughts. And it got to a point, I called the Samaritans in December because I was going through a query. I was going through... that was very technical. I was going through, how do I say it? Well, actually, my friends know about it, so I don't know why I'm trying to keep it secret. Basically, I wasn't going to go to 2 events, and I didn't know how to tell my friends about it. And I got myself all worked up that my friends were going to lose their friendships with me, and they'd be like, we're never going to be friends with you again now. And then if I lost their friendships, I would have 0 best friends and 0 friends, and therefore, at 30 years old, how am I going to make friends? And I called the Samaritans, 116-123, samaritans.org.uk if you want to do it. And we spoke about it, and I was like, well, yeah, this is what I'm going to say to them. These are the different variations of what they would say. And then I sat with my friends and I spoke to them. I said, look, this is the situation. Absolutely fine with it. Absolutely fine. But you've built up that paranoia in your head because it's based on the expectations you would have if you were that other person. And that doesn't say the same about them.
Yes. Plus, I know you've got high levels of this tachykynin, right? Because you've got that paranoia that's coming from it. Let me ask you, have you ever been to see a therapist?
No. I would love to have therapy. I'd love to have therapy, long-form therapy. I think everyone should be in therapy, to be honest. I think every single person should have therapy or even a check-in mentor every single week. That's outside voice. It comes down to money. It comes down to I don't necessarily need it for a serious enough effect. I know, I can't remember who it was. I know some. I'm sure I heard that someone through someone has had their kids in therapy since they were like 4 years old, so that they've always learned to have that outlet to talk openly with people with. But like, you know, I've got friends in therapy and they're going through a hard time and therefore they need to have it. I'm not going through a hard time. I have those down times and I have those low moods, but not the depressed. So, you know, my line is halfway. It's not at the bottom and it's not at the top. I can keep going up and down, but it's never low enough to need the therapy, and it's never high enough that I'm perfectly okay.
But again, we've kind of set that, haven't we? That association of therapy is associated with mental illness. And then we've got this other term, which is called mental health. I myself don't like that word very much at all, because the word mental already associates itself with illness. And I know from a medical perspective, mental illness is a very specific thing. There's emotional health. There's emotional agility. There's emotional flexibility. And like you said, I also truly believe that everyone has a doctor in this country, in the UK. Everyone is a doctor. Everyone also should have a coach and a therapist. And you go across the pond, you know, go off to America, like people are talking about it. And it's not because there's something wrong. It's back to what kind of, you know, we're probably doing on our shows as well, is space for conversation, space to give someone a space for reflection, getting them to think about opportunities and options. And it all makes such a huge difference. So, yeah, we'll talk offline, because I have some therapy qualifications you might be interested in.
Oh, massively. Well, but you're right. And look, we have these conversations all the time about you go to the gym for your physical health, or about your emotional health. That's all well and good, but I do think it comes back to payment. I think, you know, if you're getting a therapist, and to your listeners, you know, you can look at a therapist for like between £80 to £180. It's not a cheap, here's a £5 once a week for a check-in. And so, yes, it's a financial investment into your mental health, and you're doing it for your physical health, blah, 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 blah. But I do generally think that finances become more important than your emotional health. And I do think that's quite a bold statement, but a true statement.
I think they're very connected, aren't they? Because it's back to, you know, time, money, and energy. It's the three things. And all of those come down to priority. It's not, I don't have enough time, I don't have enough money, I don't have enough energy. It's where are you putting your priority? Because that, you know, £100, say, well, what else are you spending it on? What else have you prioritized to spend it on? Now, it might be, as you say, it's to put food on the table, and there's something to think about. But it might be the takeaway, or the nights out with your mates, which isn't giving you the connection that you want. So where are you then spending your time, money, and energy? And I do believe everyone has choice. And I know this gets debated about all the time in terms of kind of people's socioeconomic statuses and demographics and upbringings and all of that. But there is always choice, whatever that is, whether it's a 1 degree shift here or there, there's always a choice.
There is. And I'm not talking about the cost of living per se, but there's also you need to save for the future. And I had a great conversation a couple of weeks ago with someone I work with of, well, how much have you got in savings? Because we all think we need to have all these savings. We need to have hundreds of thousands of pounds of savings, because otherwise, how are you ever going to get through life? And I think we put so much pressure on ourselves, and we prioritise those savings all the time. The savings don't get spent. The savings are there. And what? You know? And also it's that thing of, but you're going to get paid next month, and then the month after. And so you're going to keep getting that money. So why not roll with it? It's funny because you've got the mindset, especially like the Generation Z, of renting. You know, they're very into renting these amazing properties, and they're spending as much money as they're earning. And then you've got the others, the generation, whatever I am, the millennials, who are trying to save everything because that's what our parents taught us. And then you've got everyone who's going on these lavish holidays 200 times a year. And you're like, well, why am I not doing that? I've got the money for it, but I can't spend that money because I can't justify it. So, yeah, it's amazing when you, again, priorities, expectations. Let's put priorities and expectations together. They also go together quite well.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. 100%. So, thinking about health then, when's the last time you had any tests related to your health?
Ooh, I don't think I ever have. I'm petrified of needles. So that's probably why. I don't know if I ever have. I had hemorrhoids last year. Just was going to say it. It was very uncomfortable. But apart from that, no, I don't think I ever have had a test for my health.
What do you feel saying that?
Fine, because like you said, we've all got access to a doctor, but it's not serious enough to go to a doctor. The waiting times, trying to book an appointment, it's such a kerfuffle. If they said, look, you've got to have a yearly checkup of your health, then yeah. I mean, I weigh myself every day. The numbers go up, not down. I do check my health like that every day. And I know I get enough sleep every day. But also that's hard as a freelancer. I last Friday got up at 2 a.m. for work. So last Thursday night, I went to bed at 7. I didn't get to sleep till about 11 p.m. Woke up at 2 a.m. for work. And ever since then, 6 days later, I'm still waking up at 2 a.m. every single morning.
Wow.
Right, because my body is so used to, on that one moment, jumping, that it now thinks it always has to jump. So at the moment, this week, I'm very sleep deprived because my body needs readjusting again. But as a freelancer, you take on the work.
Yeah. And totally get that. Like you do what you need to do in the time that you need to do it. It's also then thinking about where can I get my reset? Because this isn't sustainable. So I need to work on my reset. But what happens with most people, Johnny, is they kind of end up with this sort of default place of, I don't really want to do what it takes because I know what it takes. It means, I might have to not press the snooze button, or I might have to stop scrolling on my phone at midnight, or I might not be able to binge on Netflix. I know what it takes to do it, but actually I don't really want to do it. And then years later, you don't make the connection between what happened with your health because of those decisions you made earlier on.
Well, I'm such a believer of getting up at. I mean, look, I'm lucky that I love the radio, and so when the radio show that I listen to in the morning goes to its break, the way radio works is you do a big break. Then you go into the news. I know that's 7 minutes. I get up during those 7 minutes, make my bed from start to finish. So the duvet goes back on, the show cushions go on, the other show cushions go on. I then take the bins out and then I go on my walk because I force myself out and I'll do my route. Straight away, first thing in the morning, I do 10,500 steps before I start my day. And I have to do it. And I know there are certain times during COVID that I didn't want to do it. And I did do the walk and I felt horrific afterwards. Or I'd work from my bed for a little bit. And all those little habits straight away got knocked. And I have to do that walk before I do anything. So even on the weekend, if I'm seeing a friend or before I've got work, I have to do 10,500 steps before I do anything in the day. And I have to give myself time for that.
Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting and fascinating to hear, because there was a time when you weren't doing that. And yet you've been able to create a habit that now it becomes a must. And I think this is so important for people listening who are thinking, I can never do this. I start something and then I give up on it and I can't stick to things. Is that there's got to be a compelling reason behind it, and you've got to have the feel good until it becomes so automated that now you have to do it, and you're doing it without thinking it. 7 minutes, you're up, out there. Amazing.
Well, you have to, that's it. It's what are your deal breakers really on it? What are the things that you can get away with not doing? Everyone wanted to try and do Joe Wicker's workout on YouTube. They were too hard. So everyone gave up. If it's not right straight away, you do give up because you lose that energy and you lose that adrenaline for it. For me, that was one of my deal breakers. I knew I could do the walk. I know I'm good at it. And also on that walk, there's two things I do. The first is notice something different on that walk every single day. So there might be a piece of rubbish on the street or a new cone or a new sign that goes up. I always notice something new. And the second thing is I'm petrified of dogs, absolutely petrified of dogs. And the route that I go, because I created this route for myself and it took about, 6 months to create this route. And I've got it down to perfection, which I've probably done for 3 years now, is I go through residential and then I go through the canals and then I go through the fields and then I go down the high street and then I come back round. And in the fields, I see all the dog walkers. And bearing in mind, 3 years ago, petrified of dogs, I'd be so scared to go near the dogs, near the people. Over the time, we've created an acquaintanceship. So they see me in the distance. They know instantly. All the dog owners know to put their dogs on leads or to hold their dogs or to have the dogs near them when I come past. I'm like the king. I go down my path and all the dogs have to move. The dogs now can kind of come near me. They don't need to go on their leads because I know what they do and they know what I will do. And although the owners will try and control them, it's very rare that they'll come anywhere near me now because we've got an allyship. And also it's speaking to someone in the morning saying, good morning, hello, hi mate. We're not having any real dialogue. It's just that face-to-face recognition. And that's what carries you through, because you've got a smile, you've made someone else happy, you've made yourself happy, and you've had that social connection before you've even started your actual day.
Yeah, no, I mean, and there's something around setting the tone of your day by setting the tone of your morning, isn't there? But there's a great analogy there from what you've described, just in terms of kind of human relationships as well. You've talked about kind of how things changed with you, with dogs. You got closer, you know, your boundaries, and I think it's the same with humans. We can get close, we can be in charge, in control. We know what our boundaries are. You can still feel connected, and it makes for a happier place, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think also on day to day, we do so many things where you're having to interact with someone. That person you're interacting with has got a job. They do their job every day. You're going to still see that same person each time. So whether it's getting your hair cut, whether it's going to a gym and speaking to the receptionist. I used to speak, for half an hour to an hour to the receptionist because I fancied them years ago. But it was that same girl each time. I'd be like, you're working next Tuesday. I'll see you next Tuesday for an hour. There's my workout done because I've spoken to you for an hour. And it's that, going into your local Marks and Spencers or Tesco's, it's the same people working in the shops every single week. So it's important to keep those relationships because they don't know you, you don't know them, but it's just that thing to make you smile, to go, I'm grounded, I deserve to be here, they deserve to be here, and I know something that they know that no one else knows. There's our little secret.
And back to purpose then, isn't it? It's like we think of purpose as this big ethereal thing that we've got to chase. But if you wake up in the morning and say the purpose of my day today is to make someone smile, and then you go and have a chat with someone in the hairdressers or at the supermarket checkout and they smile, that's purposeful. Like you've achieved my purpose for the day. And then that carries on spreading, doesn't it? We know that, kindness spreads, gratitude spreads, all of it continues to spread. So by you evoking your purpose, one simple thing, doesn't have to be this big thing. We don't need statues in Trafalgar Square. You've actually created a much better, we've got this ripple effect going, really.
Yeah, and I'll take that a step further even to really bring this conversation full circle is what we really spoke about was priority and expectation. And before, halfway through, we put them on equal level. Again, you've now put priority above expectation. You've prioritized how do you want the world to see you. So rather than thinking about what does this say about everyone else, what does it say about you? So if you've set that expectation that you want to make someone smile today, or you've done the right thing, or you've said the right thing, you've set that priority for yourself, you've met your expectation. It's not that to anyone else but yourself. And I think that's also really interesting that we're not relying on anyone else to get us through the day. We're relying on ourselves, which goes back to what you said about how much do you love yourself as a question, and how much do you know yourself as a secondary question. If you can set that priority of the expectation of you giving the world how you want to be perceived, therefore, I think you've got about 90% love for yourself and 90% you know yourself. I don't think you'll ever love yourself 100%. I don't think you'll ever know yourself 100%. I believe you will know that when you die, because you still need to go through lots of experiences to really understand that. How are you with kids? How are you with grandkids? How are you with great grandkids? How are you with cousins and, going down the family tree? And that's how you will really know yourself, because you'll have to adapt to that. But I do think that if you can set those expectations to yourself, that's how you're proud of yourself. The reason why we get that social anxiety, that paranoia, is because we're not proud of ourselves. We're not proud that we didn't go and have that extra conversation. We're not proud that we didn't go and chat to that girl in the bar. We've let ourselves down, and only we can set those expectations, and only we can prioritize what is the most important expectation for that.
Yeah, no, love it. It's been such a great conversation. I think I've got to end by asking you. I mean, you said you've got to live life in order to know yourself, and you'll only know when you're dead. And I guess my question then is, how long do you want to live, Johnny?
I take every day as it comes. If I die tomorrow, I've had a good life. Look, I think it's funny. We all think we're going to live to 100. I think 100 is like the base number we still all use. We're going to live to 100. It's a very hard question. I'm sure there are days that everyone people who are not suicidal but still ask, what is the point of me being here in 5 years' time? I think we all ask those questions because we never really know what our purpose is. We all have a role to play in the world, and it will come to a point the role stops. If my podcast stops, for example, maybe that's when I die because my role has stopped in the world. I don't know when I want to die. I take every day as it comes. I try to have things to look forward to. I think that's really important to stay grounded for yourself. So having a holiday booked or having a dinner arrangement that you're really looking forward to, I think that keeps you alive. I give me some therapy afterwards and we'll come up to that answer 10 hours later.
Yeah, because the number I really want you to come up with is 1 million hours. That's what's going to happen after we've spent some time together. That's going to be your new number.
Well, but you say 1 million hours, it's like I've always been told you need 100,000 air miles in radio time to become a radio presenter. I think it's very funny when you quantify a number and it's such a big number that it's unreachable. It's not like you're putting everything on MyFitnessPal and you're saying, you only gonna have 2,000 calories a day, and you can quantify that number and add it up. To say 100 million hours is hard because it's too much of a bigger number to comprehend.
Yeah, and I think exactly. So when we start talking about billions and gazillions, and we've got no concept of what that is. But 1 million hours is 116 years, and the reason I say this all the time on this show is because there's proof of concept. There are humans that have lived over 1 million hours. So 1 million hours is within our grasp. And a lot of the stuff that you've talked to me about on this show, when you go back to sort of some of the science and the research, this is how you add years to your life. We know people who are optimistic, for example, live longer than those who are pessimistic. Those who experience gratitude, those who have connection, those who walk a lot. All of this, there's deep research. There's a lot of science attached to why. Back to kind of what's going on with your neurobiology and your hormones, etc. So the time is now, and you couple that up. You couple all of kind of what's been part of our sort of ancestral way that we're wired with the technology that we've now got right at our fingertips. And living 1 million hours is not an impossibility. The question is, how long do you want to live?
I will leave that for another day.
Right, world, you've heard it here. We've all got our radars out for Johnny. And if there's anyone listening who loves what you've seen on the screen today, then I'm going to put all of Johnny's details on here, including which dating apps he's on as well, so you can go find him. Thank you, Johnny. Well, that for sure was a super speedy, jam-packed conversation. Do you know, though, I feel like I'm on a new mission in life now. I know we were talking about purpose in the conversation, but I feel like I've got a new purpose now, which is to find Johnny a Jewish girlfriend, because that is what he asked for. So here's what I'm going to do. First of all, I'm going to speak to my friend Alex. Alex is my amazing hairdresser, Hair by Alex, and I know that she will definitely know someone who knows someone who knows someone. So that's what I'm going to do first of all. And the second thing I'm going to do is dedicate next week's episodes to Johnny Seifert's pursuit of love. Because what is love? Well, love is certainly not this elusive thing that you need to wait for. Fundamentally, it's biochemistry and biology. So next week, I'm going to take a deep dive into the chemistry of love and tell you how you can hack this so that you can find it and keep it. Finders keepers, right? I will see you next week, and I wish you a health activating day.